Welcome back, Fan-Fueled family. I've got something a little different today to show you, so let's dive right in. When I was little, probably around 10 or so, my older brother, who is absolutely awesome, taught me to play the card game Magic the Gathering. Not only that, he gave me all of his cards. I've loved the game ever since. I really haven't played much in quite a while, but one thing I do love doing is creating my own cards. Today, I'm going to show you some of them, and if you guys like this kind of video, I can make a follow-up with more. All of the artists will be linked in the video's description. First on the list is Woodland Fox. It's pretty straightforward, just a decently priced 2/3 with Forest Walk, but it gets an additional +2/+1 to make a 4/4 if you have at least 5 forests in play. I usually run a mono green deck with artifact support, so this would definitely be a card I'd play. Continuing the theme of foxes, next up is Fox Trails, a green enchantment for 4 green. For just 2 green mana, no need to tap, a creature you control gets Forest Walk and lifelink until the end of the turn. If you can work this right, that means you can pick your biggest creature, swing at your opponent without them being able to block, and gain life equal to your creature's power. Tidepool Bandit is a cute little raccoon, a 2/2 for 2 blue-green. Its stat line isn't the focus here, but rather its ability. It can steal artifacts, which is a reference to how raccoons are prone to swiping things. This powerful ability is at least somewhat balanced by the bandit's lack of removal prevention. A terror or even a lightning bolt takes it off the board. Nozomi, Blaze Dancer, was honestly inspired by the art. I saw this piece and immediately asked the artist, Nate Keith over on DeviantArt, if I could use it. With their permission, I built Nozomi around the artwork. For 3 red, she's a 4/8 and has vigilance and protection from red. I went vigilance because monks are traditionally seen as very disciplined and vigilant, and the protection from red represents that she's in her element when surrounded by fire. She can't be hurt by it. She can only be blocked by 1 creature, so unless your opponent has some really big creatures in play, she's not going down. Her final ability is meant to evoke the precision of her martial arts. I sort of envision her using a variation of Wing Chun, taking the foe's power, bracing against the hit, then turning that power against her foe. For Wizard's Tower, I wanted to not only call on 2 of my favorite wizards in the game, but to represent that the tower itself is filled with wizards ready to attack. The first ability evokes the iconic Prodigal Sorcerer, giving all your wizards the power to ping by tapping. The final ability is the ability of Arcanus the Omnipotent, my favorite wizard in the game, but costs an extra blue mana just to balance it a little more. Dooku, Count of Sereno, is the first canon character on this list. Obviously, it's Count Dooku from Star Wars, and I was a little torn on what his creature subtype should be. Ultimately, I settled on Human Noble rather than Human Wizard or anything more alluding to Jedi because especially later in his life, his nobility was important to him. His keyword abilities, Vigilance and First Strike, represent his raw skill. He's always at the ready, and his precision makes his strikes land before his foes. The first ability, the 1 for 3 red, is a representation of his Force Lightning. I took cues from the iconic red card Lightning Bolt, but tripled the cost since this is a repeatable ability. Finally, the last ability ties into his lightsaber form, Makashi. Dooku is one of the greatest lightsaber duelists the Jedi Order has ever seen, and Makashi is specifically tailored to dealing with a single opponent. That said, Dooku has proven that he can comfortably handle 2 skilled opponents at once. The flavor text is one of my favorite Dooku quotes.
Twice the pride, double the fall.
Continuing with the theme of Sir Christopher Lee, Scaramanga Gilded Assassin is based on his character in the James Bond franchise, the iconic man with the golden gun. He's an assassin with incredible skill, so I gave him First Strike. He does usually strike from the shadows after all. I also gave him Reach, letting him hit flying creatures, and Death Touch because his shots are always kills. His tap ability is sort of designed to lean into the assassination skills. Like the Dooku card, I gave him flavor text based on one of his most badass quotes.
To us, Mr. Bond, we are the best.
Our next 2 cards go hand in hand. Hinata Hyuga, Clan's Pride, and Neji Hyuga, Clan's Prodigy, work really well together. They have synergistic abilities that complement each other. Hinata gets +4/+0 if you have Neji in play, and Neji gets +0/+4 if Hinata's in play. They both have Trample and First Strike as a reference to how you can't really defend against their clan's Jukin martial art because it attacks the internal organs and bypasses everything else.
The Hugo way is to attack their opponent's internal organs and the chakra network through which the chakra flows. Their way is more subtle.
You see, you can't build up your internal organs no matter how hard you train. Even the toughest ninja is vulnerable to this kind of attack.
Their final abilities are designed to represent the Hyuga's defensive capabilities. They can easily block a single projectile aimed at an ally. Hinata's ability especially is designed to emphasize her drive to protect her friends. Thinking about it now, I should have added in the ability to look at either your own library's top card or to look at your opponent's hand to represent the Byakugan's ability to see through things. My overgrown mantis here is a pretty straightforward creature. It's big, hence the overgrown part of the name, and has reach, again because of its size, and First Strike representing the incredible speed of praying mantises. The Moxen are, of course, iconic. The original 5 were part of the very first set of Magic, Alpha, and they're part of the Power 9, a group of 9 cards widely regarded as the most powerful cards ever printed. It's a rite of passage for cardsmiths to create their own Mox, so I made the Glowing Mox. I tried to make it a little bit less powerful than the original 5, but still strong. It's still a free mana source, but it has the added effect of, if you pay for it, granting you life and producing mana of whatever color you spent on it. So, for example, in a mono green deck, my preferred color, you can tap a forest for it and it can then produce either green or colorless mana. If you have a way to filter mana, you can make it very effective. Even if you play it for free without bothering with the kicker, it still produces colorless mana. Giratina, specifically Shiny Giratina Origin form, is my third favorite Pokemon ever. I love that serpentine body, those colors are exquisite, and the way it swims through the air is just really cool. I settled on making it a dragon spirit, tying into its typing of Dragon Ghost, and I gave it a ton of power. Flying was a natural pick, since Giratina takes the laws of gravity as more of a suggestion, and gave it menace since it's such a looming threat in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Its abilities both tie into its nature as a ghost. It sort of slips in and out of reality and can do the same to those around it. The flavor text is something I created to make it fit a bit better into the Magic world. This isn't so much a Pokemon as it is an interpretation of the creature through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I made this card a few months ago when I was replaying the Bayonetta trilogy. The name is a nod to her whole identity in the first game, which she sort of exceeds going forward. She's an Umbra Witch, so black was naturally going to be a part of her color identity, but I felt blue was appropriate too, since a lot of her abilities feel like the kind of stuff we see in that wedge of the color pie. I gave her a really different stat line too. 8-1 means she can't survive a hit, but she deals insane amounts of damage. Combine that with First Strike, and she can almost always drop an opposing creature before they hit her. Reach was a natural choice too. Her guns are, well, guns, and Hexproof makes her impossible to target with enemy spells. That final set of abilities is meant to evoke her ability in the games, Witch Time, which lets her massively slow down the passage of time after dodging, and I represented that as a time walk effect. The flavor text is one of my favorite simple quotes from Bayonetta.
Don't fuck with a witch.
Angels have almost always been iconic and powerful in Magic the Gathering, as far back as Sarah Angel in Alpha, the very first set of the game, and at least as recently as Baneslayer Angel in 2021. For 6 mana, Asira, Virtue of Mercy, is a 6/6 with a whole host of keywords and abilities. She flies and has Vigilance, of course, common things for angels, but she also has protection from black and lifelink, which leans into her theme of mercy and healing. Her other abilities play on her power and toughness, so she's able to gain new life each turn if she's not tapped, she can prevent damage equal to her toughness, and she can even increase her stat line with that final ability. Scyther is, without question, my favorite Pokemon. I mean, it's a 5-foot-tall praying mantis with goddamn scythes for arms. You can't get any cooler than that. This card, like all of my Pokemon Magic the Gathering cards, isn't just Scyther dropped into the Magic the Gathering world, but rather an interpretation of the creature itself through the lens of that world. The insect subtype was natural. Scyther is a bug type, and it's clearly heavily based on a praying mantis. Flying is obviously there to represent Scyther's secondary flying type, and Haste and Double Strike both tie into Scyther's insane speed. I gave it 4 power because with Double Strike it swings for 8, and I gave it 3 toughness specifically to make it vulnerable to things like Lightning Bolt, representing its weakness to fire and electric. The SCP Foundation has a ton of monsters. I think they're up to the 9,000s by now. Few are as iconic or as powerful as SCP-682. It goes by many names: the hard-to-destroy reptile, the death alligator, the Tarrasque, or, by Dr. Alto Clef, that damn lizard. It's a huge, hulking, lizard-like monstrosity with an insane and impossibly powerful adaptive ability. It's also known for its absolute hatred of humanity. The Foundation has been trying to kill 682 for decades, but it always adapts, always returns. For this card, I wanted to really make it feel like the actual monster, so I gave it a huge stat line, 710. The name, Firstborn of Karak, is a reference to 682 potentially being the firstborn child of the big bad of the SCP Foundation, the Scarlet King. I know that text box is really jam-packed, but the first ability just means that it always comes back. It just takes a little while. The second ability is representative of the thing's ability to adapt to any situation, any effect. It copies the keywords of anything that blocks or that blocks it, haste, trample, that sort of thing, and, more importantly, it gets protection from that creature's color, which is done to symbolize 682's power to develop temporary immunities to things that are used to try and kill it. I've saved the best 2 for last. First, we have another SCP character, though not an anomaly this time. SCP Animated Tales from the Foundation, a sadly inactive animated series here on YouTube, was what really got me interested in the Foundation. One of their characters, Level 3 researcher Dr. Amelia Buck, is my favorite fictional character of all time.
Good day. I am Dr. Buck of the SCP Foundation.
I've made 2 Dr. Buck cards, a basic one and a full art card. They're both identical in terms of stats, but with different art. She's not a fighter, so she's got weak physical stats, just a 2/2, so for 5 mana you expect to get something great in her abilities to match that. All of her abilities are meant to evoke her brilliant scientific mind. Her first ability is designed to symbolize the Foundation's use of D-Class, people taken from places like Death Row to be used in potentially fatal experiments. She conducts an experiment and gets data from it, and it's a coin toss whether the D-Class survives. Her second ability is written to show that she's intelligent enough to use her resources effectively to protect herself. Dr. Buck in the show has survived a lot of dangerous situations by calling on her accumulated knowledge. Finally, the last ability represents her unique intellectual input. Cards are often depicted as knowledge in Magic, so this shows that whenever she's involved in the acquisition of knowledge, more of it is gained. For the standard card, I used a picture of her that I found on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. It was posted by Ominous Artist onto the SCP animated page. For the full art version, I felt she warranted a bit of extra effort. First, I made a mythic rare set symbol out of the SCP Foundation logo. Then, I took this base art by CXXY and used online tools and GIMP to remove the background. I made one of my designs for the background and overlaid the backgroundless picture of Dr. Buck onto it and then used that as the art. This is, in my opinion, one of, if not the best card I've ever made. For our last entry, I again made 2 versions, one standard and one full art. This is the Pokemon Volcarona. I made both of these cards for my first ever subscriber, as Volcarona is his favorite Pokemon. I wanted to again lean into the abilities of the creature while recreating it through the lens of Magic the Gathering. It's a fire moth, bug fire type, so I gave it red and green color identity with a bit more emphasis on the red. It's an insect, of course, and it flies. Volcarona itself is a pretty powerful Pokemon. I thought it was a pseudo-legendary for a while, actually. To reference that, I made it a 6/4. Its first ability is a reference to Volcarona's Swarm Hidden ability, increasing the power of bug-type moves. The second ability is a nod to Volcarona's primary ability, Flame Body, which has a chance to burn targets with any attack that makes physical contact. So what do you think of these? Would you play any of them yourself? Which one is your favorite? Let me know down in the comments. I've made a lot more cards than just these, and I make more every so often. If you want to see more of them, let me know and I'll be happy to make a video like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is a little different than my usual content, but it's something I wanted to make. If you enjoy this kind of content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, leave a comment and a like, it all helps. There's a new video every Tuesday and Friday, and shorts every Saturday and Sunday, as well as bonus videos here and there, posts, polls, and more. If you want to see a video on the assassins that nearly killed Darth Plagueis, click here. Or, click here for every single light side power in Star Wars explained. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.